Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2026 MLB Draft Show, hosted, of course, by Sox Machine. I am Josh Nelson, alongside managing editor Jim Margulis. And it is a joyous occasion. For the first time in our lifetimes, and for many of you as well, the Chicago White Sox are picking first overall in the upcoming draft, which we are expecting that first overall pick to be announced around 12:37 p.m. Central Time. But we do have some breaking news regarding the Chicago White Sox, Jim. And in a season of pleasant surprises, none bigger than Tristan Peters, who shocked us last night, hitting for the cycle. And now Tristan Peters, all-star, Jim Margulis.
Yeah, it's like the White Sox or the league wanted to apologize to him for overshadowing the cycle, or at least competing with the cycle by trading for Jacob Gonzalez at the same time. And so the post-game conversation is, hey, seventh cycle in White Sox history. And also, what did the White Sox just do? And who are they taking? So this is a nice way to restore some of the spotlight on a guy who's really, not only is he having a rookie of the year caliber season, but he's also probably pound for pound the most important White Sox development this season, because trying to picture the White Sox outfield without Tristan Peters and what he's been doing, both defensively and offensively, it would be a gigantic mess. So the fact that he's getting the stage is, it's deserved, one, for his performance, but also just a nice little storyline to apprise people nationally for when they're trying to figure out, like, why are the White Sox good? Like, if Peters comes to the plate in the All-Star game, assuming his at bat lasts long enough, or his time on the broadcast lasts long enough to talk about him, he's probably the best representative. He and Miguel Vargas, I think, are the best representatives for why the White Sox have been able to do as much as they've done this year.
We talked about it when we gave out our midseason grades, which, if you want to watch that episode on our YouTube channel, you can definitely check it out. For those that are visiting the Sox Machine YouTube channel for the first time, please hit the subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it. And we mentioned this in our midseason show, Jim. Somehow the White Sox traded Luis Robert Jr. away and still improved their production in center field because of Tristan Peters. That's one of the biggest surprises so far.
Especially defensively. I think that's the bigger surprise, is like Robert was up and down enough at the plate, even when he was healthy, to feel like getting another All-Star season, another 2023 out of him, which would be required to sustain the Sox hopes. That would be not the greatest bets, but at least you'd have the floor of him being a superlative center field defender if he's able to go 100%. So the fact that Peters is posting some of the best metrics in center field in the American League, while also being this plus bat who's hitting over 300, is now an all-star, while Robert is having a hard time getting into rehab games, is quite the turn.
It really is. So we go from, we're thinking the White Sox could have 4 all-stars. Then our hearts are broken. Just one initially announced. But now it's Miguel Vargas, Munetaka Murakami, and Tristan Peters. And our James Fegan, our beat reporter, is currently at Rate Field right now as the Chicago White Sox have their draft war room. That's where they'll be making the decisions. And of course, in Philadelphia, Commissioner Rob Manfred will be announcing those picks. We will not be screen sharing because of broadcast rights when Rob Manfred makes that announcement. So please use this as an opportunity to watch us on your phone, or if you have a second monitor nearby, or if you don't want to see Rob Manfred, we'll announce those picks as they happen in the first part of the first round. Our plan is to be live streaming to around 12:45, covering that first pick by the Chicago White Sox. I have to drop off and do a radio hit on the score to explain what the White Sox have done, so you can listen to me on the radio. But Jim, last night was a surprise of surprises. One, they blow out the Athletics. Great sight to see. After that series against the Red Sox, win 14-1. Tristan Peters hits for the cycle. Huge shock. That overshadows how awesome Sean Burke was again on the mound. And then the White Sox and the Pittsburgh Pirates pull off this deal that's been rumored for a couple of weeks. I didn't really think that it would be good trade partners because Pittsburgh needed pitching help, and the White Sox don't have a lot of pitching help to give up. But because of Connor Griffin's thumb injury, the Pirates are in need of a shortstop. So the White Sox and Pirates pull off this trade, sending Jacob Gonzalez along with Brandon Iser to Pittsburgh for a AAA reliever and the 34th overall pick. Jim, I know you wrote a lot about this as far as on the trade. What are your initial thoughts about the trade and how it could maybe impact the White Sox in the short term, but also how it could help them in the long term?
Well, I guess I can start with the initial thoughts to my initial thoughts. It's kind of funny. I'm not used to the White Sox being good or being a contender, irrelevant to where fans are buying in. And so when you do present a pessimistic case, like for a while, like pessimism reigned. And so anytime you crap on what the White Sox are doing, you get a chorus of people saying, yeah, 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 down with Han, etc. Now with Chris Getz really banking some credibility among fans, they're giving him the benefit of the doubt, which is ultimately good. But yeah, I'm just not used to presenting the more pessimistic take on it and being met with all the reasons why it'll work or why it's good or what I'm not considering. Uh, so that's ultimately, I think, a good thing is for the White Sox to be doing enough things well on the field to where I can get shouted down. But when it comes to Gonzalez, like my concern is not so much this trade in isolation, just because if the White Sox were in the middle of another 90 plus loss season, you'd understand why. Like they're just stocking their war chest for the draft, increasing the number of shots they get to draft an impact player and have that impact player around for perhaps like a Justin Ishbia stewardship to where the White Sox can lock these guys up long term at a commensurate deal. And I would get that pretty easily, even if I still think Gonzalez might be an overpay. It's a tricky deal to pull off right now, just because we just saw Gonzalez step in for Munetaka Murakami and do a decent job of filling in. He wasn't exactly a one-to-one replacement. He didn't really bat against lefties, whereas Murakami does. He had that big 0 for 28 spell in the middle of it, which sank his numbers. But he emerged on the other side, hitting, driving in runs, making some plays at first base Murakami wouldn't make, missing some plays that Murakami might make just because of his unfamiliarity with the position. But he helped keep the White Sox afloat. And when Murakami went down, you looked at the infield picture and thought, okay, Gonzalez gets a shot. First base, weird fits, but he's been hitting. He's been worth an audition. This makes sense. This is a good, productive use of bad news of a month-long or longer Murakami absence. Should something strike the White Sox now, be it Murakami goes back in the injured list, or Colson Montgomery's back flares up, or we saw Miguel Vargas get hit by a pitch. It was kind of scary. Something like that happens. You don't have that automatic solution to step in. And, I've been talking about more bats than spots for years now. And the White Sox had that for 14 minutes before they traded Gonzalez. I counted 14 minutes because he was pulled from the game at 6:54. The White Sox had first pitch at 6:40. That's how long their depth lasted. If Montgomery goes down, you can fill in shortstop. But then you probably have Sam Antonacci go to second base, and then you have left field being wide open when Antonacci has solved that. You have like this whole bunch of comb-over issues that makes it really hard for anybody to come in from AAA to step in. Like we saw that when Gonzalez was already on the roster and they needed an outfielder, and they call up Junior Perez, who's not a major leaguer right now. And that's how little depth they had, is that Perez was the guy. And now that Gonzalez is out, and Perez is already in the roster, that kind of shows how thin they are. So there's a chance that the White Sox can replace Gonzalez over the next couple of weeks with another trade, filling in that depth or acquiring somebody who can be a bench player right now. But I would have figured that if Gonzalez were traded this month, it would be for a starting pitcher that they need, or a reliever that they need, or they'd use that versus, you're looking at a draft pick who might need 3-4 years to help the team.
And with the White Sox acquiring that pick, let's review as far as the picks that they have over the next couple of days during the 2026 Major League Baseball draft. As Jim mentioned, it is a risky trade by the White Sox because they hurt their depth, but what they are hoping for is they could grab somebody at pick number 34, which they gained from the Pittsburgh Pirates, that could help out as far as the continuation of building up and strengthening their farm system. Again, the White Sox have the first overall pick. The slot value is more than $11.3 million. They will not be drafting or signing anyone for that amount. Again, the record is $9.25 million. The expectation across the industry is that the White Sox will be drafting and signing a player at pick number 1 between $9.5 to $10 million. I'll explain why in a little bit. By adding the 34th pick, the White Sox added almost another $2.9 million to their draft pool. And having pick 41, that's another $2.4 million. And of course, they have pick 77 as well. That's over $1 million. And pick 105, which is around $750,000. And when it comes to the money game, this is the aspect, Jim, I think over the years that we have struggled. I think the entire industry struggles to try to explain to even the most casual and diehard baseball fans, because it's so different from the NFL and NBA drafts. Because the slot values are open to negotiation between the player and the teams, it does give the teams an opportunity to play what I call as the money game. By drafting whoever first overall and signing them to, let's say, a $9.5 million signing bonus, the White Sox can then take those cost savings from the first pick and increase their offer in future picks. So again, looking at that board, if the White Sox do draft Rock Cholowsky, Grady Emerson, or Von Lackey first overall, sign them to $9.5 million, I'm thinking they could offer up to $3.5 million at pick 34 and close to $3 million at pick 41. What does that do? You use this strategy to go after prep players. College players don't have a lot of leverage today when it comes to being drafted and signing. Your choices are sign for what we offer, which is usually slot value, or go back to college. You don't want to do that because college seniors get hit really hard in the MLB draft negotiations, and they do not go in the first round. They go much later in the round. So you lose potential future money by doing so. But with prep players, Jim, they have real leverage. If you don't meet their signing bonus requirement, they'll just go to school, get the sweet, sweet NIL money, and then try again in the MLB draft as either like a draft eligible sophomore, they're old enough, or as a junior. And if they play well enough, well, then they're right back to being part of the first round conversation, much like Rock Cholowsky was a couple of seasons. So I guess that long-term future for the White Sox, we're talking about the largest draft pool ever in the history of the MLB draft. The White Sox will now spend more than $20 million in this upcoming draft, maybe up to $21 million. And I think at the end of the day on Monday, when the dust settles, Jim, that's going to be the biggest story for this White Sox draft. It's not so much who they take first overall. Obviously, that's historic. But this is a large amount of capital that they are spending to improve their farm system.
Yeah. And, they've spent the max. They've spent the 5% overage usually that you're talking about that gets them over 21 million. Teams are allowed to go 5% over before incurring penalties. They usually spend that. And, since they capped the draft spending, the White Sox have been happy to. I know that you get a lot of reflexive Reinsdorf jokes saying, oh, they're going to lowball Cholowsky at number 1, or they're not going to spend their entire slot value. They'll always do. This is the system that Reinsdorf wanted, having a finite amount of resources that everybody can spend on the system. So he's happy to do it. Just like, the international system, he's happy to participate in as well. Given that they've kept spending there. So this is ideal for him and the White Sox, and they will spend all the money. The one thing that's come up in terms of like Cholowsky's signability or how much leverage he has, especially with the Giants being rumored to come on strong and really want him and really pump up the draft value, is what kind of leverage he does have. And there is a little bit, but what the White Sox would lose if somehow Cholowsky really tried to play hardball against the White Sox and sign for close to his slot value, is that the White Sox would lose that draft value from the pool. So they'd lose that, basically half of their draft pool. And because they would count that money spent no matter what they intended to spend or what they'd agreed to. So the value of that 34th pick is basically eaten up in the draft, but they would get the second overall pick next year in that slot value. So as much leverage, while Cholowsky has a little bit of leverage, it doesn't penalize the White Sox too much. It disrupts their immediate plans maybe a little bit, force them to take one less pick. Maybe one player becomes available for the rest of the draft that wasn't expected to be there. But as we saw with the Astros, when they didn't sign Brady Aiken, they got the second pick next year and drafted Alex Bregman and came away better for it. So there are fallback options should the White Sox not sign him, but there's also no reason to think that they would draft somebody that they didn't really have a firm, if not rock solid idea of what that deal will be.
We've had quite a few people just jump on the live stream. Hello, welcome. I'm Josh Nelson alongside Jim Margalit, the Sox Machine. If you're not familiar with Sox Machine, we covered the Chicago White Sox. This is our 20th season. 20th season for Jim, writing daily about the Chicago White Sox. This is our 13th season podcasting about the Chicago White Sox. It is a historic day for the Chicago White Sox, the first time they've had the number one pick since 1977 when they took Harold Baines first overall. So in our lifetimes, Jim, and of course, at first for Sox Machine, we are covering the number one pick. So that's why it's a pretty big day for the White Sox. They have 3 All-Stars. They're currently tied for first place in the American League Central. They won 14-1 last night. The vibes are incredibly high on the south side of Chicago. So let's talk about as far as the 3 options for the Chicago White Sox. And if you wanted to watch as far as the pre-draft press conference from director of amateur scouting, Mike Shirley of the Chicago White Sox, you could watch that video on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Sox Machine. But the latest intel that we have received and looking around across all partners of the industry is that right now signs point to that the Chicago White Sox would be using the number 1 overall pick on UCLA shortstop Rock Cholowsky. We have been covering Rock Cholowsky weekly on Sox Machine since mid-February. I traveled to Arlington, Texas to watch Rock Cholowsky, and I also went to the Big Ten tournament in Omaha, Nebraska to watch Rock Cholowsky. So I have
denied multiple attempts to talk to Rock Cholowsky because
yes.
they kept him walled off from the media.
Yes. Thank you, UCLA, for that. Rock's not in Philadelphia for draft day. So I believe he is with his family. His father has been he's a former major leaguer. He's been part of the Cincinnati Reds and Toronto Blue Jays scouting teams as well. So Rock Cholowsky's no stranger when it comes to the MLB scouting community. I have said a lot about Rock. I've written a lot about Rock. Jim, your perspective would be the case for the White Sox taking Rock Cholowsky first overall.
The Dansby Swanson comps are, I think, fitting and fine. And, he's proven himself to be a good use of the number 1 overall pick, being a right-handed shortstop with a really high defensive floor, the capability for sensational plays, ability to hit 20 plus homers with regularity in the majors. Like, that's a really good starter kit for any starting shortstop and defensive captain of the infield. So that's, I think that's probably the easiest way to sum it up.
Yeah, I think there are some things that he needs to work on, like defensively, incredibly well polished. I agree with Jim Callis of MLB.com. Jim and I had that preview show last week. Again, I'm going to keep plugging this. You could watch on our YouTube channel the preview show as we talked about what Rock Cholowsky can do. That's his best attribute, is his defense. Offensively, what the Whites, if they do decide to take Cholowsky first overall, they need to get him to focus more on being pull-oriented. The 3 pillars of the White Sox hitting program now is decision-making, contact, and damage. The swing decision-making for Rock Cholowsky in the second half this season was not great, especially in the postseason, the Big Ten tournament and regionals. I felt like he chased after way too many fastballs on the outside or off the outside corner when he had hitters counts. So if the White Sox can get him to focus more on the inner third of the plate and maybe facing better pitching, because college pitchers have such a terrible time, Jim, throwing inside, him getting acclimated to that and leveraging the incredible strength that he has, especially in his lower half, the White Sox could be adding a potential 25 plus home run hitter to their future lineup. Now, I think it's going to take 450 to 500 plate appearances in the minor leagues for Rock Cholowsky to make those adjustments. and to be ready, or at least have the conversation, is he major league ready? That puts you in the timeline of around this time next year for White Sox fans, if you're curious about as far as timing that he can join the major leagues. But if he does unlock that and he has better swing decisions and he does demonstrate the power that we have seen at UCLA over to the minor leagues, Jim, then yeah, White Sox fans are already hyped for Rock Cholowsky. That hype will just continue to grow if he can make those type of adjustments. And dare I say, like, the White Sox could be adding another Miguel Vargas type hitter into their lineup if Rock Cholowsky can make those adjustments.
And I would say, based on the highlights, based on the scouting reports, the consistency of the scouting reports, that he'd probably be the shortstop in the White Sox infield by like 2028. Like, if he's in the picture, like Colson Montgomery moves for him, I think. Billy Carlson is, based on scouting reports, he's been out with an injury, but he has the most positive, raved about defensive tool sets in the system, to where he's probably first overall. But I think after him, Cholowsky would be the guy I think you move others for, unless you have like the outfield vacancy. And then you might have to get creative and might have to kind of prioritize flexibility and the ability to cover multiple positions. But if everybody is more or less fixed at one spot in the field, I think Cholowsky would be the shortstop.
And we know just how much that Will Venable, the current manager of the White Sox, loves that flexibility, to be able to move guys around, give guys days off. So that's going to be important. So while we could maybe project that Rock Cholowsky could be the future shortstop for the Chicago White Sox, maybe in 2028 or in 2029, I'm sure just like Colson Montgomery, he'll bounce around the infield so the White Sox can try to put in the best lineup possible over the course of a marathon of 162 games. Now, Rock Cholowsky was not my number one prospect in the top 150. Go ahead.
Real quick, James is texting us saying Jim Callis is reporting the pick is Rock. Keith Law has been on Emerson for a while. He now says it's Rock. So seems like the field is shifting with about 10 minutes before the pick, or 8 minutes before the pick, that we might not have to make the case for others.
Well, just quickly for those that could be drafting after the White Sox.
Yeah, let's we'll do some first guessing as well. But
yes,
we might have to change the way we frame this conversation.
So with Grady Emerson is my number one prospect. And you could read as far as the cases for and cases against with Rock Cholowsky, Grady Emerson, and Vaughn Lackey that I made on SoxMachine.com. The reason why I have Grady Emerson number one, because as of right now, in an 18-year-old, Emerson is ahead of Rock Cholowsky. And my bias has changed over the years covering the MLB draft for us at Sox Machine since 2018, that I feel like MLB teams today, Jim, do a much better job of bringing in a teenager, either from the international ranks or high school ranks, and developing them to become major leaguers than college programs do. And because he's ahead already of where Rock Cholowsky was at age 18, that's why I gave Emerson the tiebreaker and put him number one overall. And if the White Sox did draft Grady Emerson, I am more confident in the White Sox ability to develop a high school hitter like Emerson because of the success they have found with Colson Montgomery and Caleb Bonham, some of their more recent high schoolers, and especially the season that Caleb Bonham is having. I know this has been a hot debate, Cholowsky and Emerson. That's why I feel like this draft could be the most contentious for White Sox fans, because I do not feel like this comparison is going to go away. And with the Twins drafting third, if Emerson finds himself to Minnesota at pick number 3 and gets drafted there, oh man, that's the angle that I'm not looking forward to, because then this compare Cholowsky and Emerson will never die.
Yeah. And when I was on the score, they asked about just the idea of college or prep, and kind of bringing back the conversation to Adley Rutschman, who is, I think, the most recent example of like a college player being the preseason number one, being the consensus number one, and then he goes number one, and Bobby Witt Jr. goes number 2. The case in that, maybe if the draft goes differently afterwards, the Orioles might regret it, but they drafted Gunnar Henderson in the second round. So I think depending on how much they like the prep talent afterwards and feel like they'd rather invest a second rounder or the 34th pick in a prep talent they feel is comparable versus spending the first overall pick money on that player. Like that would be the case, maybe not against Grady Emerson, but maybe for somebody who captures a lot of what they think Grady Emerson could give them.
Yes. And the other Von Lackey catcher for Georgia Tech really came on strong, especially as far as the second half of this season. As a catcher, we just don't see this level of athleticism that Von Lackey has provided to Georgia Tech. His pop times have been around 1.75 seconds. He's got great throwing technique. He does an excellent job, especially in the college game where you see so much bunting or the bottom of the order trying to bunt for hits. Von Lackey does an amazing job of getting behind home plate, out in front of home plate, fielding those bunts and throwing out runners at first base. He loves the back pick. He's fantastic in throwing out runners at first base that get off the base a little bit too long or too far away, I should say. And offensively, he's gotten so much better this year, really making those swing mechanic changes where he does have a leg kick that helps him fire off his back hip. And what that's done is that he's been able to generate more loft in his swing. And Von Lackey at regionals this year in the postseason was launching home runs 450 plus feet. I know it's a metal bat and with the BB Core era, but still those are monster home run distances that Von Lackey has displayed. The case against Von Lackey, Jim, and this kind of goes back to over the years we covered the draft, reminds me of Jonathan India. And as far as that case study, because it's just one good year of production for Von Lackey. And that's why I hesitated putting Von Lackey ahead of Grady Emerson and Rock Cholowsky.
Yeah, I mean, it's a case of, not that you draft for need to, but, seeing him go to the Rays in some mock drafts makes a lot more sense in terms of how great of a need they have at the position and how forgiving they can be with the way they solve other positions and really take the time to develop him and matriculate him to the majors. If it does take a little bit of adjustment going from one good year in college to pro ball. It's a case where we talked about this a little bit during the draft lottery, I think, is that when you have a top two or top three like this, as Lackey's kind of fleshed out into top three, there is value in having that second or third pick just because like the tough decision has been made. And it feels like when it comes to Lackey at 3 or Emerson at 2, it's like a no-brainer. And the White Sox are the ones that actually are incurring the risk of second guessing when it comes to actually deciding which one do you want, because you actually have the choice.
Yeah, and if everybody's intel is wrong, and let's say the White Sox do take Von Lackey with the first overall pick, if those offensive numbers and that adjustments that he made in his junior year do carry on, like I feel like he can be a 3-4 WAR consistent type catcher in the majors. And we know how valuable that is, Jim, because it feels like catcher is the most difficult position for major league teams to find quality at. Like even Cal Raleigh, historic season last year, maybe the greatest season ever by a catcher. And he's really struggling this year. JT Realmuto had a great stretch from 2017 to 2022, but it feels like he's starting to run out of gas in his career. So that's another aspect as well with Von Lackey, is just how valuable catchers are in this game.
Well, and also Kyle Teal getting drafted one pick before the White Sox selected Jacob Gonzalez, and they wanted him so much that they traded for him. So it feels like they've, they had the experience of having the catcher they targeted with the first pick not being available, and did what they could to rectify it. And, Teal is getting up to speed now, coming off his 2 leg injuries. But yeah, we've seen the White Sox wrestle with that in real time, trying to solve that position through the draft. And then they couldn't do that. So they solved it through trade, trying to remedy how the draft didn't shake out for them.
And the comment section has been very busy. We've been posting your guys' comments during the live stream. So feel free to post your comments in the chat below. If you have questions as well, we can pull those too. As in Rec asked, Josh, you had the number 1 pick signing for about $9.5 million months ago. Yes, I did. Part of that is math. Part of that is what we call intel. What made the most sense? We had a feeling with the number 1 overall pick this year that the White Sox would be breaking records, that Rock Cholowsky was the type of player in December that merited to break the record for largest signing bonus for a first overall pick. Currently, that first overall pick signing bonus record is held by Paul Skeens, and I don't think anyone would argue that Paul Skeens was most deserving of that. But Chase Burns and Charlie Condon share the record for largest signing bonus ever by a drafted player, and Rock Cholowsky is expected to break that. If it is $9.5 million, and we'll know in a few weeks when Rock Cholowsky officially signs, if he is the number one overall pick, as the MLB draft technically is starting right now. So the Chicago White Sox are on the clock, and very exciting time. We'll know about 7 minutes who the White Sox officially take, as we keep one eye on the live stream on NBC with Commissioner Rob Manfred when he goes up to the podium and announces the first overall pick by the Chicago White Sox. But that $9.5 million sends about $1.8 million down the line here for the White Sox for the first 10 rounds. And again, I'll bring that up and the importance of that. So at $9.5 million, first overall pick, I'm expecting comp A, that 34th pick that the White Sox acquired from the Pittsburgh Pirates, to be around $3.5 million. That allows you to convince one of the top high schoolers to fall to you at number 34. And then pick 41. We've seen the last couple of seasons now, Jim. Caleb Bonnermer and Jaden Fauske both signed for $3 million for that second round pick. That seems to be the comfort zone for the White Sox.
Interesting. I'm seeing Joe Doyle tweeting now that Rock Cholowsky will get north of 10 million to become the number one pick.
That's a big jump.
He had 9.5 million, around 9.5 million being, what he'd heard 8 minutes ago, but now 43 seconds ago on my feed, north of 10 million.
I mean, that would be, to break the record by $1 million percentage wise, would be a pretty significant jump. So again, we'll know for sure later on, but this is important because it influences what the White Sox will do at picks 34 and 41. Because I'll be jumping on the radio around 1 o'clock today on The Score, which you can listen to at 104.3 FM in Chicago, or you could watch on their Twitch stream as well, explain what the White Sox did and what they could do in the future. We will pick up the live stream later today, so follow us on social media. We're at Sox Machine and all the social media platforms leading up to picks 34 and 41 for the White Sox. This is the latest intel as we wait for the first overall pick to be announced. We are expecting that to be announced in about 5 minutes here. This is what I'm hearing this morning. I'm expecting the White Sox to use picks 34 and 41 on prep players. This is the list that I continue to hear for targets for the White Sox. Landon Thome, who I've seen 3 times and have been writing reports all spring about him. Yes, he is the son of Jim Thome, former MLB Hall of Famer, and of course, Chicago White Sox, from Nazareth Academy. Jack Slightum. We've also got a chance to see Jack this spring. He was somebody that was outside the top 150 prospects, but he continues to see his stock rise. The expectation is Jack will be selected in the first 50 picks. Archer Horn, he is a shortstop right-handed pitcher. I'm siding more towards right-handed pitcher the more that I watch him. He is a Stanford commit out of California. Dominic Santorelli is a physical freak in nature. I can't believe that he's actually 18 years old. At the MLB Draft Combine, he maxed out at 115 mile per hour exit velocity, which is absolutely crazy for an 18-year-old to hit the ball that hard. He was also part of the White Sox area code team. And Luke Williams is that typical tool shed and very impressive metrics. He had an ankle injury that impacted his ability to be seen during the showcase circuit. But these are the 5 names that I hear for the White Sox that they could be targeting at picks 34 and 41. So I'm expecting college at number 1 with Rock Cholowsky, Landon Thome at 34, and I would say either Jack Slightum or Archer Horn at pick 41, Jim. So college first, and then here come the high schoolers for the White Sox. Archer Horn is a good name. It is. Rock Cholowsky and Archer Horn. If you add that in the first day, that'd be great for the names. Yeah, one that can be completely mangled by a Chicago accent, really chewed on, than one that sounds like an accessory in a board game. All right. And there's a question. Does MLB have tampering rules for the draft? If it came out that the Giants did tell Cholowsky to make it difficult for the top 3 teams, that's a great question. I'll have to ask Jim Callis. They may have rules. teams may not follow them. So a lot of those are the conversations between you and the agent. And then their agent is the brother of Jeff Samardzija. So both Rock Cholowsky and Grady Emerson, that's kind of what made this difficult as well. They have the same agent. They're represented by the team, and that agency used to be part of Wasserman before they broke up the last few months. Let's see here. And then Big Mike, yesterday on sports radio, somebody said Tommy won't be there at 41. I agree. That was something that I was hearing as well. And then the numerous shows that I've been on in the last couple of weeks, I've been also sharing that too, that the expectation was Tommy not to be available at pick 41.
Yep. And Rob Manfred is on the podium right now doing his preamble. I got to work on my reaction faces for YouTube thumbnails.
Excellent. He was supposed to make this speech like 5 minutes ago, so hopefully this doesn't delay everything. The other weird thing too is that they're not there. The players are not there.
It's better to have none of them there than like two of them there.
Yeah, that'd be kind of weird.
Because I think that's what happened the year before, right?
Yes. And because agents are charging for appearance fees and MLB doesn't want to pay for that. It's a weird thing. It's a very weird thing. I don't know how the NFL does it. But yeah, to me, I feel like it'd be a lot better if the players were there. And then if like, whether it's Cholowsky or Emerson, they walk out with the number 1 White Sox jersey, do the handshaking, great photo opportunity. That's why, like, and the White Sox have about 4 minutes now to make that pick. So around 12:40 now, we are expecting the first overall pick to be announced. That's why the White Sox draft room is at Rate Field in Chicago. So there are media personnel right now in Philadelphia, and we are sending James to Philadelphia. So thank you to everyone that supports us on Sox Machine. And if you don't have a Sox Machine subscription, you can do so at soxmachine.com/products. It helps us to have that travel fund so we can send James out to cover the White Sox on the road, to Jim to cover the minor leagues for us. And then I cover as far as the big college baseball tournaments as well. So your subscriptions go a long way in helping support that initiative. You can sign up at soxmachine.com/products. But that's why James is here in Chicago, because we're expecting Chris Getz to speak after the number 1 overall pick in Chicago and not Philadelphia. And then Mike Shirley, the director of amateur scouting, will speak to the media after picks 34 and 41 in Chicago and not Philadelphia. So it's like, I don't know what everybody's doing in Philadelphia right now, Jim, other than sitting around and watching Commissioner Rob Manfred just announce the names in person.
Yeah, the original plan was for James to be there, and then we had to adjust some flights once they realized where the White Sox were actually going to be talking and the fact that they're going to be doing their talking in person. So, yeah, it is a very kind of haphazard or at least disjointed production when it comes to what they want to present on TV versus how it's actually working out in local markets.
And we are seeing on Twitter right now from ESPN's Chip Aston, the pick is in for the Chicago White Sox. And we'll wait until after the commercial breaks. But as of right now, based on his tweet, the Chicago White Sox will be selecting Rock Cholowsky with the first overall pick, the shortstop from UCLA. And bring up as far as his numbers. And during his career at UCLA, this season in 60 games, he had 21 homers and drove in 60 RBIs. His sophomore year was electric. I vote for the Dick Hauser Award, which is one of the college baseball awards for Player of the Year, along with the Golden. And he hit 23 homers, had 19 doubles, and drove in 74 RBIs to help lead UCLA to the College World Series. Yes, his junior year wasn't as good as his sophomore year, but it was and again, all just for the television aspect of the MLB draft.
I think the White Sox have taken over the conference and learning center as their war room. I think Josh has dropped off just as this most opportune moment. So, okay, we're looking at the White Sox draft room. Everybody is having it. Come up, Rock here. Dan O'Dowd is talking with the most houndstooth of Blazers, it looks like. Josh, you back?
I hope so. I can't get rid of the overlay on StreamYard. Oh, well, no, we're all over the place.
There we go. Pick is in. Work on my reaction faces here.
All right, so Rob Manfred is at the podium. Sorry for that technical snafu, but we are back. And again, and that is officially official. The Chicago White Sox select Rock Cholowsky first overall, the shortstop from UCLA. And back in December, when the White Sox won the draft lottery, they were very excited, especially Chris Getz. And after all of the analysis and throughout the season and diving into these prospects, at the end of the day, Jim, Rock Cholowsky does go wire to wire, I guess, when it comes to the MLB draft, just like Adley Rutschman. He was the number one prospect coming into this draft, and he ends up being the number one overall pick.
Did you hear how Rob Manfred pronounced his name?
No, I have Rob on mute.
Rock Cholowsky. He had months to prepare for this announcement. If not first overall, then top 2 or top 3.
Yeah.
Wow. The guy loves the game. They want this is great fodder for the the negotiations when it comes to the draft in the CBA and trying to shorten the draft and make the outsource more the player development to college and really have these guys known so they can make a big spectacle out of the MLB draft. And what does Rob Manfred do with the first overall pick? Butchers his name, pauses and butchers his name. You would think, wow, like just,
yeah.
Look at that, the reaction, tears. There's a reaction. Now there's a YouTube reaction.
Yes.
So, I don't have that in my arsenal.
Yeah. So Rock, very emotional. He's coming to the South Side. So for all the White Sox fans that got themselves Rock Cholowsky jerseys at Grandstand, rejoice. You don't have to sweat anymore. You are in the clear. We'll see if he sticks with the White Sox. The White Sox last night just traded one of their first round Pirates. But there we go, Jim. We have the number one overall pick. It is Rock Cholowsky.
Yep, I'm just sharing because we have a post up now on Sox Machine, so I'm just sharing that out. Wow, he butchered his name.
And yes. So we'll be picking up the live stream later this afternoon. I have to hop off and join as far as the radio and to do additional MLB draft stuff. Again, join the draft chat on soxmachine.com. But thank you guys so much for hopping into this live stream. Again, we'll be picking up later this afternoon when the White Sox approach picks 34 and 41. But I'm Josh Nelson alongside Jim Margulis. Thank you guys so much for watching this live stream as the Chicago White